Hi everyone. So I was about to do a forest bathing session and I thought, why don't I share with you how to forest bathe? For those of you who may have never heard of the term or maybe have never done it, this video is for you. So let's bathe in the forest together. So the first step, find a forest. So here I have a forest in front of me. I'm coming off of obviously pavement and some houses, and you know, when we say the word forest, you may not have access to a forest per se, which means a dense amount of trees where you can barely see the sky. However, you may have access to a park, a trail. You may have to drive a couple minutes, maybe 10 minutes to get to a forest. It's worth the drive if you can. So let's forest bathe together. Here we go. Step 1, find a forest. Step 2, before you enter the forest, you see here, I'm just on the outskirts of the forest. First thing is to pay some respect. So we know that when we acknowledge nature, when we acknowledge that we are symbiotic with nature, when we feel like there's a relationship, we get more out of it. And we feel more. So before I enter the forest, I'm going to say, thank you, forest, for being here and for your protection, guidance, and direction. I ask that you protect me as I enter, and I have such respect and reverence for who and what you are. Thank you so much. So showing some gratitude. And if you want to get really spiritual, you know, Native American cultures, obviously, if you know anything about Native American culture, it's really about reverence and respect for Mother Earth, Mother Nature. And so we want to just acknowledge that it's a thing. And, you know, we all come from Mother Earth. So when we respect Mother Earth, we are showing respect for ourselves. It grounds us and makes us feel connected. So I'm on a trail. I'm looking at all my surroundings, which brings me to the third step, which is to activate the senses. So what I'm doing is I'm hearing the birds, I'm looking at little squirrels, I'm smelling what we call the phytoncides and the aerosols from the trees, especially in spring, you're gonna start to smell some things. And so I'm opening up my senses, breathing deeply. The phytoncides is the bacteria in the soil. So soil has some really, really interesting phytoncides bacteria that exist in the soil, which gives it that beautiful smell. So I'll grab some of the soil here and just give it a smell. So I'm on the main trail here, so it's not going to be as great as if I go off grid here. So let's go a little deeper into the bush. And obviously the denser and kind of off the trail you go, the more different varieties of bacteria you're going to get. You know, being in an urban environment, which is what I'm in right now, I'm in the city, it's going to have access to pollution, may have wash from kind of the rain having pollution in it as well, agriculturally. So I may not be able to get, you know, a very dense amount of good bacteria, but look at the difference between this soil and this one. This one's a bit wet, which means it's going to be a little bit more active. Oh my gosh, so I can smell the phytoncides from here. So what phytoncides do for us as humans, it actually boosts our immune system. So the bacteria in here is bacteria we need as humans. So studies have shown that a lot of the elements that exist within the forest, from the fractals that enter our eyes, which is the pattern of the trees. So if you look at the pattern of the trees, there's a certain kind of pattern that exists called fractals. And when that image is put into our eye and reflected into our retina, it actually excites our brain and it sends the sympathetic nervous system into relaxation mode. So we dip into parasympathetic nervous system processes, which lowers our heart rate, relaxes us, and makes us feel better, which helps our immune system. So we've got the fractals from our eyes, We've got the beautiful scent from the bacteria, the phytoncides that exist within the soil. And then we also have the aerosols from the trees themselves. So each tree, cypress tree, fir tree, spruce tree, pine tree, all gonna have a scent, especially if the leaves are active. So if I walk over here, and this is where respect comes in, I'm gonna ask permission to take a leaf so I can educate all of you on the different aerosols. So I can smell this. So that smell is good for our immune system. Not only good, it's like necessary. So we are of nature. So if your hands get dirty, so I just asked permission to take that piece of leaf off and smell that. Nice deep breath. It's amazing. It's amazing. So I think forest bathing, what the point of it is like through a process, me teaching you what is forest bathing, is for you to understand that nothing is coincidence, nothing is by chance. There's a reason why when you go into the forest you feel good. There's a reason why you look out into a scenery and you just get this hit of inspiration. There's no coincidence that when you look up at the trees it feels good, literally like someone's massaging your eyes. When you smell the bacteria in the soil, let's say you're a gardener, you know that smell really well. It's no coincidence, and that's what I'm teaching you, is that there's no coincidence that you love this, and it's not only limited to you. This is literally part of our species. This is home for us as humans. We have lost our way over the last 80 or 90 years. Once industrialization happened, we went into urban environments. We had the beautiful invention of the air conditioner. All of a sudden we didn't like to face the cold, whereas our ancestors for the past, what do you want to say, last million years, 20,000 years, at least 70,000 years, bared the cold every winter. And I come from Swedish descent, so my Nordic ancestors for sure built up the tolerance for the wintertime. And in my DNA, I have skills, I have tolerance for the winter that someone that was born in the Caribbean or someone that has ancestry in the Southern Hemisphere maybe doesn't. But all of a sudden, once industrialization hit, we had internal heating systems. We painted our walls white and put drywall there. We pretended that we weren't equipped to deal with the winter. And we lost our sensitization, our tolerance for harsh conditions. But then we also lost our feelings of home. And we lost that the capacity and all of the hard work our ancestors put in for us to tolerate conditions and also reap the benefits of those conditions. You can still forest bathe in the wintertime. You may or may not know that, but there's a different scent that exists. There's the audio, when you crunch the snow under your feet, it sends a signal to our brain. It's like it remembers the past 70,000 years that we've had that happen. And it brings us subconsciously memories of good times and floods us with endorphins. So it's no coincidence that this feels good and you're not unique in the sense that you do like it. It's just that for those of us who hate the bugs, don't like moss, don't like to get dirty, we've just forgotten. It's really what it is. We've just forgotten, and maybe we were never taught in our lifetime, but the memory deep inside our DNA and deep inside our cells and in our subconscious remembers, I promise you. So I've talked about forest aerosols. I've talked about the phytoncides from the bacteria in the soil. I've talked about the fractals with our eyes, and the other part of the visual is just the vastness. So when we say the word awesome, probably an overused word, right? What we mean is something is awesome. So it's awe-inspiring, it's a feeling. Awesome is a word that is an adjective, it's a feeling word. So when I look at this trail and I see the vastness here, I am in a state of awe. And so the state of awe is not a coincidence that we feel this way. And so I've studied this. What does it mean? Like, why does it feel good when we climb up a mountain and we look out onto the ocean and we see the sun? Like, what is that feeling? And what it is, it's a feeling of awe. And we can call it inspirational. We can call it, you know, I've done a lot of mountain climbing, and I've never been presented with the top of a mountain when I finally got there where I wasn't emotional. I mean, you can't control it. And I know you guys feel the same way, you know, whether you have a cottage and you head out there the first day you open the cottage and it's the first warm day, or you are a mountain climber or a cross-country skier, or if you're a hiker, go for a walk or what have you. You probably have memories too of maybe being, who knows, touching the ocean for the first time. There's a sense there that it feels magical and it feels right and it feels like you're in the present moment. And so that's literally just science. So what happens to us, our human species reacts to the element of awe. And what awe is vastness. So when people say, I feel so small, what they're describing is the feeling of awe in that there's this breadth of vastness. You know, when you're in the airplane or in a helicopter, when you looked out, or you've ever skydived before, that's what that feeling is. It's this feeling of awe. And so when we look and it's never ending, the feeling of looking at something and it's just never ending gives us, you'd think it would be scary for us as humans, right, to feel small. Some people who have a fear of heights feel the opposite feeling. But those people who have a fear of heights still, when they're presented with this feeling of vastness from a nature perspective, have no problem, which is very interesting. So if you go up and you've lost your sense of groundedness, it's scary. But if you go up and you see this vastness and you see this beauty, then it creates this sense of security and safety. And it's not a coincidence that we feel that way. It's literally just science, and it's been studied. And that's why forest bathing and that's why being outdoors is so important. Now, the other thing I want to tell you is that our body and our nervous system responds to blues and greens. Isn't that cool? We're literally primed, DNA-wise, to live on Earth, to respond to Earth. We are part of the Earth because we are made for this planet. So the fact that the sky is this brilliant blue, and in the summertime we've got these great greens, and now even with spring and sometimes in the winter as well, right? These trees, they don't go anywhere. So the pine, spruce, they stick around all seasons. Our body responds to blues and greens. And what happens is the same thing that happens when we smell those phytoncides from the bacteria in the soil, the same thing that happens when we take a minute, we feel grounded, we're smelling the air and we're looking at the fractals and the patterns of the trees. We respond the same way. Our immune system becomes strengthened. It lowers our heart rate. And guess what? There's been studies that have shown that with people who have access to 20 minutes of forest bathing a day, they're actually kinder human beings. There was a study done in Japan where they took two groups because they wanted to isolate exercise. So one of the arguments was, you know what, it's not forest bathing, it's the fact that people are actually moving. That's what's making them more kind, that's what's making them more happy. And so they isolated for that by a guide taking a group out to an urban environment, going for a walk, and then a guide taking them forest bathing. And the scenario was the same. The guide was going to pretend to drop a piece of paper at a certain time, you know, like 5 minutes into this walk. He drops a piece of paper and they time how long it takes for someone to pick it up and if they use any words of kindness. So they isolated for exercise by doing that. And of course, when they were forest bathing and the guy dropped the paper, I forget what the interval of the time was, but it was like a matter of seconds. And the words they used was, "Oh, you dropped this." And the tone of voice was recorded, which is a whole other thing about voice and you know, ASMR, if you've heard of that. There's a certain soothingness or meditation voice, right, or cadence in how we use our words that's more soothing to someone. And so the tone was more soothing, kind, loving, versus the urban environment. It took a long time for anyone to pick it up. And eventually the guide had to pick up his own piece of paper. So it's not exercise that necessarily makes us kinder, but really access to forest bathing. So the last thing I want to tell you is about that isolates forest bathing is that forest bathing is not a hike. Forest bathing is not, it's not exercise. Forest bathing is slow. Forest bathing is really about the senses. It's really about slowing down, letting your brain catch up to your surroundings, and that's what makes it forest bathing. So as you see here, I'm perched on some moss and I'm taking it all in. Forest bathing is supposed to be, I forget exactly the amount, but it's kind of like you're supposed to go an hour for a kilometer, to give you an idea. So for those of you who are like, yeah, I get outside a lot, it's really about the tone. Like, how are you embracing and connecting to your surroundings? Are you, and really think about it this way, are you running circles in nature without reverence or respect for nature? Or are you taking it in? Are you respecting her? Are you loving her? And are you loving yourself? Because the greatest gift to Mother Nature is for you to love yourself, because you are nature. You are as beautiful as nature is. You are as resilient as nature is. And we can learn a lot about ourselves by observing nature and how it does its thing. The last thing, I lied to you, I have one more thing to tell you, is the spiritual effects of forest bathing. So when we feel alone, when, during any time of your life where you feel alone, and you can be in a room of 20 people and feel alone, and that aloneness, it happens when we feel disconnected from our true nature. The easiest, most effective way to instantly get rid of that feeling, to feel connected, is to connect with nature. And I mean really connect with nature, not just go for a hike, not just to go for a quick run, but to connect and to have an emotional connection with nature, to stop, to sense, to hug a tree. I say that seriously. And to press your heart against the bark of a tree and recognize that you are as strong and as beautiful and as resilient as nature is, and that nature is you. So the spiritual component of nature is just recognizing that you're never alone. You're never alone. And loneliness has nothing to do with people. It has everything to do with feeling connected to your purpose, to self-love, and loving Mother Earth. So, yeah, another way that you can do this if you can't get outside and you don't have access to a forest is to bring plants inside your home, to change the wallpaper of your phone to a time where you did have access to nature, to really kind of like close your eyes and go back in time and visualize nature. Another thing that you can do, which is really cool, is you can find some organic forest aerosols. So if you go to my Amazon store, I've curated a bunch of things that I use all the time. And how you get there is you can go to the link in bio on my Instagram page. It's just Stephanie Karlovitz, and you can click on the blue shop, and under recovery and rest, I have my favorite forest aerosols there. So there's cypress, there's fir, spruce, pine, and so you can actually fill your room when you're working with the aerosols. And organic is important, a good quality brand. That's why I put them in the Amazon shop, because they're actually hard to find. And so there's been so many studies on the effects of cypress on men, specifically when it comes to stress and sleeping. There's been so many studies done on fir and spruce and pine, and all these different aerosols. If you get them and they're authentic, you can bring the outside inside. So that's a good hack for you guys. Another thing is a light therapy box, which is also in the Amazon store. And I've done some videos on this before where you wake up in the morning, especially during the winter months, where you can have a light that mimics the sun. And when the sun hits our face and hits our body, it definitely changes the biochemistry of our body, and it increases our mood, and it's kind of like a warm hug. Like, that's what we're doing, is we're hugging ourselves with nature, and that's our mother. Our mother is nature. And so when we're feeling alone, when we're feeling sad, when we're feeling depressed, when we're feeling disconnected, we want to hug from nature, and forest bathing can do that for us. And these little hacks to bring the outside inside can also make us feel warm and snuggly and protected and feel connected. So the spiritual component is really big too. You know, not everybody attests or subscribes to God or Allah or any of those kind of figures of or even religion, of course, but definitely I think most people can come to a consensus that nature is a spiritual experience. And even if you do not believe in an afterlife or any of those things, it's really what it does for us on a day-to-day basis, and that feeling that's important. And even if you're atheist and you only believe in science, you can't beat the science. Just look at every peer-reviewed journal on forest bathing, same with meditation, nature, sounds, music, different hertz levels, and why a bird's chirping is a certain hertz, and it has an effect on our brain. It's so fascinating. So this is forest bathing. I hope you learned a few things. I hope you institute forest bathing into your life. You don't need to do it with anybody. You can do it with yourself. Take your time, take things in. And if you get emotional, if this is something you've never tried before and you're trying it and it's really tough for you, just know that it's just this idea of what's probably happening is you're coming home, you know, you're embracing, you know, the mother for the first time maybe. And just remember that you've got 100,000 years, 70,000 years of cycles of seasons within your body, within your DNA, all your ancestors, everything we've learned from the different seasons. You know, like, talk about different versions of a human being. Like, imagine if you worked on a piece of music 70,000 times. Imagine if you curated a recipe, a cookie recipe 70,000 times, how good that cookie would be, how good that piece of music would be. You are the 70,000th version. It's insane. How awesome is that? And so looking at nature and looking at these trees that have existed, you know, longer than our lifetime, where our ancestors have, you know, been witness to nature so many times before, it's pretty fucking cool, right? So remember that. Remember that you are special, and we get to live in a time like this, and it's wicked. It's really wicked, and we really do have the best tools available to us, and they don't cost any money. So guys, love ya. Take care. And if you forest bathe, I'd love to hear your feedback of how it is for you. And if you have any other things that maybe you've been doing this for a bit and you have some other tips, please share them with me so I can share them with others. And take a picture of yourself and share it with people, because some people are working really hard on the front line and they haven't been in nature for a while. So share the love. Sound good? Okay guys, see you later. Before I go, I'll give you my view.